Welcome, everybody, to Dallas Programmable Robotics Robot Builders Night Virtual for July 15th. Tonight, we've got maybe one or two presenters, and then we'll go with our roundtable discussion of whatever people have. So we'll start off with Tom.
Okay, this is just pretty simple stuff. It's a work in progress. I had mentioned I was replacing my previous outdoor security camera system with some new high definition power over Ethernet cameras. And just for purposes of comparison, this is the old camera. Hard to get these in front of my camera. So that's the old one on top and the new one underneath. They appear to be quite similar in size, and I find that they are probably going to be easy enough to mount. I have all four of the cameras working on my power over Ethernet equipped bridge, and I can talk to them all and configure them. They all have fairly substantial embedded Linux computers inside them. They even have a human recognition capability built into them as well, although I won't use it for my application. The interesting part was I have set aside one of my collection of used desktops as the server that I will use to run the ZoneMinder security cam software that I'm going to use. I have some experience with it from a long time ago, but it's changed a lot. I was initially going to configure the server with a light GUI Ubuntu, Q Ubuntu or L Ubuntu. It was previously running Windows 10, and I keep some installable DVD distributions for a variety of Ubuntus kicking around just to put on machines when I have a reason to. So I had some old ones. They were version 18s. So I installed the version 18 and said, this is dumb. This should actually be current. So I began to tell it to do its own upgrades, and it upgraded up to 22 fine. I upgraded from 18 to 20, but it takes forever. So then I thought, that's dumb. Let's just download a 24. Version 24 is the current Ubuntu long-term support. So download the 24 onto a DVD, install it on the machine, and away we go. Save a lot of time. Trouble is, version 24 would not install on this particular desktop computer that I had, because it would set up the boot partitions on the hard drive incorrectly. So I went back, version 18 works fine. Version 24 doesn't. So I went back to version 22. It installs just fine. Then I was able to upgrade 22 to 24 correctly with no problems. After a bit of research, I determined that, in fact, version 24 has problems with a different configuration of partitions on the hard drive and does not set them up correctly. I was surprised that it hasn't been fixed yet, because version 24 has been around a while. But it still has that problem. A number of people have reported it. So for what it's worth, if you're playing around with, this was Ubuntu that I was working with. If you're playing around with those, you might want to be aware that depending what you put it on, you may have problems. After a bit more research, I realized it was probably not a good idea to run any sort of a GUI on the server that I'm going to use, because I'm going to be loading it fairly heavily with what I want to experiment with on ZoneMinder. So I then switched it to a plain version 24 Ubuntu server, which installed just fine. So I have that running now, and I have my cameras all running through my power over Ethernet, and I continue to standardize the cameras so they're all configured the same way, because curiously enough, even though I thought I bought 4 identical cameras from AliExpress, I did not. They sent me 2 different types, and each of the 4 cameras were configured differently, which makes me wonder what their history has been. Nonetheless, they all seem to be working fine, and I can standardize their configuration. I'll set them up with static IP addresses just so that they don't wander around on me in my IP space, and then proceed to learn a lot more, primarily about the capability of ZoneMinder to be able to do human recognition, which apparently can do that quite well without very much tuning. So we'll see how well it works. So that's it, just some fun and games setting up a Ubuntu server and getting all my cameras configured the same way. So far, it's going well. The server when I started to work with it was configured with 8 kbytes of RAM. It's not a very powerful server. It's 2 CPUs and 4 threads, and I've been using it for a mild Windows 10 machine. So I bought 8 more gig of memory to put into it to bring it up to 16 gig. I ordered that memory 5 days ago from AliExpress for $12 Canadian, free shipping. Canada Post tells me that they were going to deliver it today. They haven't delivered it yet, but hopefully it'll show up tomorrow. Canada Post is usually pretty accurate when they tell you when things are coming, but it is really, really hot up here. So they may have taken a siesta at the middle of the day today. But
define hot.
5 or 6 days delivery from China is pretty impressive. Sorry, so what was that again?
How hot?
Define hot.
32 degrees C this afternoon.
It's a bit warm. Yeah.
A humidex of probably 40. Yeah, it's pretty warm. You don't want to go out for too long if you don't have to.
You said that the cameras were embedded Linux?
They are, yes. They, in fact, I've been documenting, these things are never well documented, so I've been documenting what I've learned about them. The H44 is running Linux-5.10-5, if that means anything to you. And it's running a 2022 version of U-boot. On top of that is the firmware that's used to drive the camera itself.
How much memory did you say?
I don't know.
Can you get like a Linux terminal on them?
No, not yet. There may be ways to root them to find out how to do that. Right now, I'm simply working through the web interface that provides administrator access to each of the cameras individually. So that's where all this stuff comes from.
And did you order them all in a single order from one vendor?
Well, I ordered them all from one vendor, but I didn't order them all at the same time. And that's probably why I've got differences in them. I ordered one several weeks ago just to experiment with it and put it outside for a while and make sure there wasn't any obvious issues with it. These are only about $25 or $26 Canadian. They're not expensive cameras at all, so I wanted to make sure that they were really some reasonable value for money. Once I was happy with that, I went online to order 3 more, and I received messages indicating that there were huge sales going on. So I decided I would buy this camera on the sale price, but they only let you do one at a time when you buy them at these discounted sale prices, between $3 and $5 off of the $26 price. So these cameras are starting to get real cheap, but only one at a time. You have to wait 24 hours and then you can order another one. So I did that 3 days in a row, and that seems to work out okay, except I didn't realize I wasn't actually going to get the same camera from the same ad from the same vendor. Such is life. They all work fine. I've identified the differences and they are very minor. So I don't have any concerns at this point. I'm using the VONIF interface with these things. So I will simply tell the server, the ZoneMinder firmware, I'll simply tell the ZoneMinder software to access the camera streams using the VONIF interface. It's working fine.
I assume that they're fixed, like they don't have any pan or zoom capability.
Correct. These are fixed. Because of the applications around my house, I bought them with 2 different focal lengths, partly to experiment a bit with a really, really wide angle focal length for my backyard, and then smaller ones for other places by the doors.
Cool.
Yeah, I have an old Lorex DVR that been sitting up in the attic for a long time. I think the hard drive is shot. We had a pipe burst and water was splashed inside of it. And you know, you can look at things live, but you can't access any of the recordings. So
there's an extremely good OnVIF, if I'm saying that right, an OnVIF device manager tool that's in the public domain. That basically you turn it loose on your local area network and it goes out and looks for cameras and related objects that use that particular interface. So it not only found my cameras, but it also found my old DVR, which I didn't think had a network interface working anymore. But it found it's an on-VIF interface, and after playing around a little bit, it turns out I can actually use my old DVR with its 4 analog cameras as 4 more cameras on my ZoneMinder. Really worked well.
So what is it called again? On VIF?
Let me call it up for you here, and I'll give you the right name. Where is it? It's here somewhere. Okay, the what you want to search for is a company called Camlytics, C-A-M. Well, naturally, you're not going to give me an about. And there it is. Okay. I found it under Camlytics, and the tool is called ODM. Capital O, capital D, capital M.
Okay.
I'm running version 2.2.250. And it's just an astonishing tool. When you start to browse the forums on security camera computer systems, this one comes up right away as a very worthwhile tool to have. There are others, but this one works so well, and it's so easy to use to tell you everything that you want to know about all devices that have that standardized interface. And I guess the other fun thing I found in my cameras when I went in and looked at all the details, my cameras, of course, are configured to call back home to China. So I made sure those were all turned off, and later on I will go to my router firewall and make sure that my firewall agrees that they're all turned off now that I have the details of those interfaces. The clue was, when I started to look through it, they show a DNS server address that I didn't recognize. It was 114.114.114.114. So I looked it up, and it's in China. And when I started to look up some of the discussions on that particular DNS server in China, it turns out that it's actually a lot more than a DNS server, that it has multiple ports that most people don't know very much about, but are considered by some to be data collection ports by devices that are elsewhere in the world that are using that DNS server and also reporting data back of some sort. I don't know. All I know is I'm going to ensure that that stuff is turned off, and even if it was working, even after I turn it off, that it will not go through my firewall. So we'll see.
So for these cameras, you don't need a connection to their proprietary cloud. You can directly connect to the camera.
Correct. Yes. And I have a couple of other cameras that are designed to be wireless, which have that mechanism to communicate to China and then back to whatever device you want to use to look at them. That's very, very common these days with cheap Chinese cameras. But if they have on-VIF interfaces, then you can simply prevent the interface to China from going out through your firewall, and you can access them directly using the on-VIF interface. I've done that before a few years back, and I just used VLC and told VLC to go find the camera using the on-VIF interface, and it did. It really worked well.
Yeah, I actually worked in the video surveillance business between 2006 and, let's say, 2015. So this brings back some memories. This discussion. Actually went to China a couple of times to one of the big manufacturers there of some of the stuff that we partnered with. Those were the days before neural nets were kind of doing all the, human recognition. So at that time, right, we used all kinds of other algorithms and heuristics to try to figure out, was some bag left behind, was a person loitering. It was really hard back then, before, neural nets really took off, even in those small devices.
Yeah. I've been following some of what I call the For Dummies articles for ZoneMinder, which have been written by some of the developers of the ZoneMinder application. And I find them very interesting because they're basically saying the same thing. They're saying, yes, we have all this motion detection logic And blob detection logic we built into ZoneMinder when we first started to develop it 10 and 15 years ago. But we don't recommend you use it anymore. It's there, but we don't recommend you use it. Use these other add-ons, which are all machine learning based. Or if you really want to be right, then you use third-party alarm sensors, things like PIR-based motion detectors, switches, whatever, in order to be certain that you have detected whatever it is you want it to detect, and then bring that into the security camera subsystem to drive other things like recordings or alarms. Yeah, it's been very interesting to read what some of these dummy kind of developer articles. They're not exactly for dummies, but they get me started. So.
Harold, you had a question.
Yeah, it's not really a question. I just didn't know where we were, and I didn't want to change the subject too much. But oh, hold on. I'm in the car, and I'm parked. I'm safe. I'm not driving. All those things. I had a thing that's happened to me this weekend, and I was watching some things, and I knew I was in the presence of greatness with this group of folks. Okay, I know that. What I didn't realize is how great the greatness was. So I'm watching the replay of a thing. I didn't get to go this year because I was in Florida going to a wedding, but that's the only thing that tore me away from the Vintage Computer Festival Southwest when it was in. And so I was watching some videos and replays, and I had no idea that Mr. Ackley is the person that coined the term Sprite. That's friggin' awesome. That is just awesome, awesome, awesome. I had no idea. And I wanted to make sure I called that out and make sure everybody else knew too, because that is, I can't tell you how I'm like, no way, that's not him. Yeah, he's sitting there. Oh, wow.
The sprite as in like the moving objects in a video game.
Yes.
Wow. I remember those from my TI 99.
Oh, yours, yes.
Well, David, you got to tell us the story of that.
Well,
Still can't hear you. Oh, there we go.
Came up with the idea and actually was in the patent for it. And I knew that the key thing on anything like that is to come up with the right term for it. And so I rummaged around in my brain and I said, okay, sprites are this mythical thing that appear or disappear or jump around. Hey, that's a good description of this thing. And so I called it a sprite. That's how it came to be.
What were you working on at the time?
I was working on the 9918. It was a graphics processor that we were developing for Mattel, and there were three inventions on it. One was to multiplex the 16-bit address plus data onto 8 lines, and the other was the generation of the full NTSC video by using switches, CMOS switches on a divider. And then my invention was the idea of the sprites, because in those days, processors were dog slow. And so you couldn't possibly repaint the screen. And so the idea is that the concept on the display unit was that you had images that were 8x8 images where you had 15 colors plus transparency for each of the 8x8. And that was the background. And I said, okay, well, with a little deviosity, I can go ahead and have one of those graphics, actually 4 of them at a time, for a total of 32 on the screen at a time. You could have 4 of those and specify the X and Y location, so that you had a register where you specified the X and Y location for that particular pattern. And so you could move that pattern by just changing that register. And that way you could actually have an image moving very quickly on the screen, because all you had to do was change the XY location. The idea also was that there were actually up to 32 of these, and it was in a priority scheme, so that each of these would appear in front of the other, in front of the background. And the transparency allowed you to say, okay, but right here in this spot, don't use this pattern, but use whatever is behind it. So if you imagine that you said, okay, here's a background that is a scene of a street. And I have a car going one way, and through the windows, I see the buildings behind. And I have a bicycle going the other way. Through the spokes, I can see everything behind. And so by using the transparency and by changing these patterns, by just changing X, Y in value and the pattern that was being used, you could do really interesting graphics with processors that were, you know, running in the megahertz as opposed to the gigahertz these days. And anyhow, that was my invention. And I decided, well, I needed something to call these things. And I decided to use the term Sprite for them. And that's gone into the literatures these days.
It's history, yeah.
Yeah.
You should have stuck with graphics acceleration. You could be worth 4 trillions today.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Anyhow, that was my invention.
That's so cool. That's great.
Oh, why did they bring it up this year? I'm a little curious how they brought it up, you know, this year. Why? Did they talk about the history or what?
Well, Guttag, Carl Guttag was a guest speaker at the conference, and he invited me to join him, and we talked about the invention of the 9918 graphic processor.
Okay, that's why I was curious why it was brought up this year. Okay, so it was a speaker that was talking about how it was and how it became. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, I remember trying to create sprites in software, basically the hard way, because I had a Commodore C16, which doesn't have hardware sprites. The Commodore 64 does, right? That's where you get all the fancy games on the C64, and the C16 has like real crappy games. So I was, you know, like you said, those things were dog slow. So doing it in software by moving the data around wasn't very effective. But you think about it, the GPU, right? That's the beginnings of the GPU.
Yep. There was also a TMS 9928, right? It had just separate RGB outputs, not composite.
No, it was a 9918.
Yeah, that one did NTSC video though, right?
Right. Yep.
There was also another one that had separate RGB outputs.
That was a later chip.
Yeah. Was it the 9928? It was similar in.
It could be.
Yeah. Yeah.
I figured I had to bring that up and make sure everybody knew on that thing, because I thought that was awesome.
Thank you for bringing it up.
That's an interesting story. Thanks, Dave, for telling us. Thanks for bringing it up, Harold.
Yeah, anytime.
I just posted a link talking about old computers of let me get it right. Google Gemini basically conceding to Atari, one of the original game consoles, on a chess game. So it was an interesting article. They basically canceled the match because they can't beat it. Does anyone else have any interesting topics to discuss?
Well, I can show you that thing I was describing earlier a little more in detail. I actually have the spot. So let me share share screen. Let's see. I want this. Yes. Share.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, there's what I was describing where you can see the arms kind of span or that, you know, I thought this was a good article. So this is what I'm trying to get built for Saturday for the Moon Day thing. So, you know, they have a well description. So I'm thinking I should be able to get it put together in a short time.
You've heard of the Poil pocket fisherman? This is the Poil pocket plotter, I guess.
Right.
It's collapsible.
Well, that's why Elizabeth Light is very portable. Was my main thought, and they did a good job of describing it, as you can see here. But yeah, I mean, it's pretty straightforward. We went into the code and that, and then set, and it was, you know, as far as I can tell, they did a very well description of it. So he went into how you generate the SVG files. So especially, you know, these couple lines right there, it looks like pretty good. Even though they have a couple of sample files. So if nothing else, you might see a dog or a triangle. But yeah. So that's what I'm hoping to get done by Saturday. So hopefully, maybe next Tuesday, you'll see it actually operational. Unless you're at, the Moon Day. So there's, I'll post the actual spot on there if y'all want it. There's let me go. So yeah, there's the site. So if y'all want to look at it more in detail, you can.
Well, thanks for the update, John. Does anyone else have something? I think Harold still has a question because his hand is still put up. I guess maybe not. Nobody else have anything?
His mic is off. I don't know.
He lowered his hand.
No,
Anyway.
I'm actually driving right now, so I've got a red light. So, yeah, that was the main thing I wanted to bring up. Was I thought that was cool. I'm like, what's Dave sitting there for? And I'm like, okay, let's find out. And then we got the whole story, and I thought that was fantastic. And I want to make sure everybody else knew. So that was my whole entire deal. And great story there, Dave. Great story, man.
Is there a link to that presentation? Was that recorded?
Yeah, if you go to Vintage Computer Festival Southwest, they have a YouTube channel, and this is one of the they had posted up. Just, I don't know if they got any more to post, but they posted up a lot of stuff that they got recorded on there, and this happens to be one of them. I'd look it up, but again, I'm not going to do that as I'm driving down the road. So.
You don't have a self-driving car yet?
Not yet.
Oh, Carl seems to think they can drive. I personally wonder about it, but
You're muted, Carl.
I'll find it when I get home. I'll post it. I finally made it.
Well, Carl, do you have anything to present today?
Oh, straight to the hot seat.
Oh, straight.
Well-
Well, we're out of topics, so.
Oh my goodness. Well, once again, I have not spent that much time with Rope Buddy stuff, unless you count ChatGPT. And then I have spent considerable amount of time once again this last week. But what to present? I could probably show some settings. I don't know if I've showed those before in ChatGPT. How about that?
Sure, that would be good.
Okay, so let me open up this. I also have a chat that's fairly interesting, several chats. Of course, Kareem is probably way ahead of me, but as always, and Harold too. But I know I even have some questions for Harold, come to think of it. So basically, I have been spending, let's say, 1 to 3 hours a day, probably, doing ChatGPT research of one thing or another and exploring ideas, learning about stuff for the last few weeks now. And a lot of it related to my work, and part of it just for curiosity. And so I have a whole folder. So I don't know if you all have seen, but in this is ChatGPT, and I'm at Plus at the moment, which is the $20 a month. I'm very likely going to go to Team, which is $25 a month, only because it gives a better guarantee of data isolation. Less likely that your chats will leak into somebody else's visibility, unless you want them to. But you can use folders and group chats in different folders. And so I have one just dedicated to ChatGPT research and the like. And so, I have this one, I shared it before, I think, on how much energy do we burn when we run these things. I have one where I learned about custom GPTs, because you can make your own kind of, I can show that in a minute probably. I learned about red team kind of risks with GPT. That's fun to look at. And then I started asking about the API versus this browser or the mobile client on your phones. And then I started to compare ChatGPT versus, you name it, Gemini, Grok, Claude, blah, blah, blah. So I have some comparisons in there. And then I have another one that digs straight into ChatGPT between 03, 40, 401, blah, 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 blah. So anyhow, these are all interesting, and I could probably pull most of them up if anyone grabs your eye. But what I thought I'd show you first is I discovered, I can't remember if I mentioned this last week, but I had this case where on one of these chats, it kept telling me there's no updates to share. There's no updates to share. I would look in, and every like another 20 minutes or an hour later, it'd say there's no updates to share. And it drove me batty. And I finally noticed that in ChatGPT, under these settings, there are 3 very interesting areas, okay, to start with, that I played with. And the first is responses and tasks. and you can select push within the app or push an email, okay? And what happens is that somehow there's this concept of tasks. I haven't looked at it much yet, but you can like schedule tasks, or it will automatically watch what you're doing, it being the GPT. And if it sees something that you want to schedule, it'll schedule these tasks for you. So it had noticed something, and it scheduled these 4 tasks, and because of them, it kept, unprompted by me directly, it was throwing these messages out. So once I finally found this and paused it, life was good. I guess I showed that last week, didn't I? But I didn't mention that you can actually then, like, why do people have those in the first place, tasks? So apparently you can ask in a text way, you can say, send me a summary of all the news relating to Japanese robots every morning, and send it by email. So it will do a search. It'll queue a task, and then every morning it'll do that kind of a search and send a summary for you, and it'll push it to your app or send it to you by email. So these can be handy, and that gets into the custom GPTs in a minute. The one I thought to show you though was this personalization. So here there's 2 things. One is manage memories, and these are all things that it kind of observed by my behavior and repeated questions, and it created these memories. And you can delete them because it only works with like up to, I think, 20 at a time, 10 to 20 at a time. So I'll probably get rid of some of these old ones, and I want to keep some of these. But anyhow, it's kind of nice because it remembers this basically as context, and then depending on your chat and what you're asking, it will say, the question he's asking is kind of related to the differences between GPT offerings and GitHub Copilot versus ChatGPT. So I know that he's interested in that, so maybe I'll give a little extra attention to that in my response and analysis. So it's kind of cool. The one that caught my eye most was that, I mentioned this last week again also, that for those who didn't see it before, like I have a couple threads going when I was generating content for a website. And if you want to be found in search, it helps to have it with a good 6th to 9th grade reading level, and these very well-known scores for readability. And I noticed that after it figured out that I wanted that for these website content, that it started to apply this memory for every response that it gave me, and that was really useful, as it turns out. But that's just, the thing is that these memories, they're not used every time. They're kind of optional, all right? And what I've discovered and this is all with respect to the ChatGPT browser mobile client, the API is another story. So, so anyhow, these are kind of like optional. They're not necessarily considered, but they might be. But these custom instructions are another thing entirely, from what I understand. And I haven't played too much with them yet, but under custom instructions, you can like personalize it. You can give it a nickname, tell a little about yourself. You can describe, what kind of traits you want GPT to assume. So I can say, just always pretend you're Rodney Dangerfield or something, I guess. But what I did do, because I started dabbling between like 03 and 4.1 and 4.0, and I noticed that 03 was very factual, okay? And 4.0 started to, it was just patting me on the back. It was like it was patronizing me, and it really pissed me off after a while. So I came in, I found this, and I said, anything else you should know about me? Do not patronize me. Avoid telling me phrases like, this is an excellent question. Instead, just continue to note if I have a prompt that explores a nuanced topic, let me know that, because I might not know it's nuanced. Also be sure that if a question isn't clear, or if my question could be improved by considering related aspects, which might be good best practices, let me know that. And then also because like the 4 series models don't tell you much about how they arrive at answers, and they don't cite like sources as much. I put in this bit that says always also show your thinking process and cite sources and benchmarks, especially if you're providing factors. So anyhow, once I put this in, I could swear that I started to notice on my 4.0 model related things that I was seeing thinking processes more, and I was seeing references more. So anyhow, those personalization things are interesting, and there's, I'm sure, more to explore. But let me pause there, and then I can show you some custom GPTs. But before I go further, any thoughts or questions on what I showed so far? Okay, have I put everyone to sleep yet? Yeah, good snores. All right, so custom GPTs. All right, so if you're not familiar with these, like there's this one, you can, like there's a whole library of different GPTs. You can get them for writing, for productivity, for programming. Somebody noticed when I showed that there's a fitness one, there's creative writing coach, coloring book hero, grammar checker, video, research, and so there's all these custom GPTs, and you might wonder, like, where's programming? Anyhow, you might wonder what makes them unique. What makes the software architecture GPT unique? I started to look into that in one of these chats, and then I started to write my own. So these custom GPTs, let's look at mine. So like there's a couple forms of them. And like this first one is a sales agent. So it's very easy to create. You click the create button. And then in this one, what I did was I said, this is what you're called. It asked what I wanted to do, and it made that nice little avatar, so that's nice. And the instructions. So I kept it really simple. I said, this GPT acts as a sales agent, design, blah, blah, blah. And basically, that's all I said. And then on top of that, though, what I did was I added knowledge. And this is where it gets interesting. So I think these are, like from the API, these might be called vector storage, or somebody help me if I'm wrong on that. But these are basically, I took pricing pages and FAQ and product descriptors from the website. I turned them into HTML, not the best approach, but it was quick and dirty. And basically within 20 minutes, I had a sales agent. And you can enable different capabilities. You can actually have actions. So you can hook this up to if this, then that. You can do webhook calls. You can do all kinds of stuff. So, and then what you can do with that is, once you configure that, then you can come over here, like you can open that one. And then like with the paid level, you can use voice mode. And I don't know if this will work or not. I'll say like this, let's try it. Tell me about your services. Oh. The mic, tell me about your services. Okay, I
The
guess
microphone might be captured by your meat.
yeah, it wants to use a not valid one, but anyhow, so I'll have to work on that demo for you. But the bottom line is that it did a really phenomenal job. And I tried one like that, like this one was trained just off of those documents. This one, on the other hand, was trained off of the open internet. I didn't give it any of those files, and it hallucinated. It was inventing products and services. I couldn't get a straight answer out of it. But when you started off with that vector storage and those files, it kind of constrained what it was thinking of. And then these others are. I shouldn't get into that on video too much, but they're very interesting because what you can do in here is on those instructions, those are like system instructions, and you can you can tell it to behave in certain ways. And those instructions are generally, I think, hidden from users, so they won't necessarily know what they are, although they can be jailbroken and figured out. But if you can basically create an agent that'll take on a certain persona and react and behave in certain ways, and that can lead to some very interesting things. So then, like these others, these ones meant for coding and programming that you can see on the marketplace. So those will just be done with some combination of the same things, right? Like the software architecture one, somebody probably has uploaded a whole bunch of files that are specific to good best practices for software architecture, and so forth and so on. So what else?
One comment. I have briefly played with the GPT feature. For one use case that I had, and I probably mentioned it previously, sort of knowledge retrieval from large PDFs. I found that. So I thought, okay, let me take these PDFs, right? Make those PDFs the knowledge of the GPT, and then ask some questions. I found that to be less accurate and than just a straight sort of chat directly. I'm not sure. I would probably have to repeat this to make sure what I'm saying is correct, but I'm pretty sure that's what I found, that attached PDFs there, ask a question, gave me less accurate responses. And the kind of questions I asked to my PDF, right? It's very specific, technical question, right? Minutia, right? It was a test case, right? I wanted to try knowledge retrieval, and precision really mattered here, right? So it wasn't able to give me the accurate and precise answer compared to just doing a single chat, attach a PDF or a couple PDFs, not too many because you overload it, right? It starts to lose track of stuff when you give it too much, right? So not as good as a straight chat. Same with projects. I tried that also, right? Because you can attach files at the project level.
Right.
And then you have different chats, maybe one day all about the same general topic, right? Again, I found like stuff was getting lost, right? It was not able to answer my specific, again, maybe, too specific questions that required, precision.
3 branches. You have sparked 3 branches on that I counted. So the first one is, did you pay attention to which model you were using?
I have it in my notes somewhere, yes, because I've been playing with different models. So yes.
Okay. So here's the on what that thread means is that, and I can show you some research on this too, but and I have very good. You will find, I think, that when it comes to, at least in my experience, when it comes to factual, deep, focused, technical kinds of questions, the 4.0 model is a bad bet. The 0.3 model is worth the extra energy that it burns.
Right. Yep. Agree.
And the 4.5, which I haven't spent that much time with, is supposedly more accurate, but from my view, it seems to hallucinate more. So that was the first thread, is you got to pay attention to which model. And actually related to that, it turns out that when you have in the client here, when you have a long-running thread going, from one prompt to the next, you can change the model. So let's say you started it in 4.0, but you want to do something else with it. Well, the next prompt along, you can move it to 0.3. And then you can say, try that again, but with the new model. And I've discovered with that it's not self-aware. It doesn't know which model it's using, but you can actually tell it which model it is, and then it actually gives it more context.
Yeah, I have been using 0.3 mostly for these kind of use cases, but I don't remember in this test for the project or the custom GPT what model I used. I should probably redo it to have.
I found it makes a huge difference because I asked it about itself and its different models, and it gave me the flat-out reversed answer. It said, yeah, 4.0 behaves like this, and it was the 0.3. And it said 0.3 behaves like this, and it was clearly 4.0. And I said, that's wrong, try again. It came back with the same answer. That's wrong. So then I finally went and I took a 0.3 answer, And I said, this is what you said in 03. And, oh, yeah, thanks. I stand corrected. Would you like me to regenerate it? Yes. So we regenerated it, and it fixed some of it, but it was still freaking wrong. So then I changed it, and that was still in the 4.0 model. So I changed to 03, and I said, okay, regenerate again. And this time it came out, I think, right. So there's a huge difference there, but there's a big cost too, right? It's like 40 times the energy. Okay, so that's the first thread. The second thread is when you tried these PDFs, did you do it in the context of a custom GPT?
Yes, I tried that, and like I said, I tried it
Okay.
in the context of a custom GPT, a project, and just a singular chat.
Okay.
And I found the singular chat to be more accurate in its
More
response.
accurate.
When you say the singular chat was more accurate, how are you using it? Are you saying that you just pasted all of the text from those PDFs in as prior prompts? How are you providing it
I attached
context?
the PDFs.
You just attach them as files?
Yep.
Okay. So did you modify your system prompt? You could, I think you can only do that if you were running it in well, I
No,
mean,
it lets you attach files.
On every turn.
yeah, but was it actually doing a full embedding into a RAG vector
Well, that
data
I don't know
store?
what they do with it behind the scenes, right? I have no idea.
And that's what's nice about the custom, because I think with the custom, you have a little more visibility and control of what's going on. But that gets to the third branch that you triggered in my brain. And that is the difference between any of these models in the browser app or the mobile app and the API. So, and they have this, and Kareem, you've probably looked at this too, I guess, but there's like context windows, right? So if you look at the specs on these different models, like 4.1, I guess, can accommodate 1 million tokens and it process 1 million. It might take a while, but it'll do 1 million tokens. And 03, older specs I saw showed it was 128,000 tokens. More recent stuff looks like it's 200,000 tokens. But anyhow, it can, if you want to throw that many tokens at it at once, and it seems to be like 1.3, 1.4 tokens per word on average, or there's a lot of tokens, it turns out, for punctuation and symbols. But you can throw a lot of tokens at this at once. But what happens is that it's basically only, when you compare the API to the browser and the mobile app, even though you're aware of this long-running thread, under the covers, to my understanding, it's really only passing one big pile of tokens into the machine and getting back a response. But from your point of view, you've got a long-running chat. And what you'll see from what I've read is that even though the API will let you submit 128,000 tokens at once for 03, even if you're using 03 in the browser or the mobile app, it's only going to accept up to like 6,000 to 8,000 tokens at once. All right. And that's just a limitation. That's a choice from what I've read. That's a choice that they've made for the browser and the mobile app so that they can manage latency and cost and responsiveness and quality of answers. So they made a trade-off, right? So if you want to have a more deep research and pay for the tokens, you got to go to the API. And then how do they do that, right? Like I have threads that, and from the research I've seen, like Reddit, apparently there's people that'll say after a couple hundred turns, ChatGPT will finally say, too much, start a new thread, I'm not doing anymore. But you got to go a couple hundred turns to get there. I haven't hit it yet. And I'm sure on the one thread that started in February that I'm close to 100 at least. But how does it do that, right? Because I have long prompts and long responses. So how does it do that? Well, it turns out that the more recent stuff is weighted more heavily from what it shows. So basically, it's going to limit no matter how long your prompt in your chat is, it's going to grab the most recent or most important 6,000 to 8,000. So what happens is that in the long running thing, it'll probably take every bit that you most recently in your current turn submit. And then as you go further back in time, it'll do summaries. Summaries. And I believe that that's why, as I've noticed, when I have these long running threads and I start to like get nuanced, I come at it from different angles, I start to see simpler and simpler versions of what it told me further. And at first I thought it was because, you know, it assumes that I've already heard that. But now I believe that it's because it's managing its tokens more efficiently. So 6,000 to 8,000. Fast, crazy stuff. But those are my learnings. And so one of these days I'm going to catch up with you guys that have tried the API and do something with it. But so far, I'm just at the custom GPT level and filling my brain with needless facts or hallucinated facts. I don't know which yet. So let's see, did I forget any other interesting things? So like I said, if you're interested in any of this bit, I've got a handful of research threads I could share out, at least by email it. I don't know how, some of these I don't want to put on public, but there's a lot of interesting stuff out there. And that's all I got. That's my rambling for the night. If you find anything, please share it because I want to learn.
Definitely interesting findings and customization.
Yeah, it's just phenomenal. I mean, to me, the $20 a month is worth every penny and more. Because I just can't imagine any research tool. And then, like the one I have that compares the OpenAI to the others, it looks like there are strengths and weaknesses for each, but it seems to me that OpenAI has earned a good spot in a lot of different areas. And then to compare, like how I haven't yet, but some of you guys have played with like GitHub Copilot or the Copilot plugins for VS Code. I haven't played with those yet, but it's really interesting to see, at least by the descriptions I found, how they behave differently, because like from what I've read, Copilot in VS Code or GitHub, you know, it's coming at things from a different angle. So it's generally from what it said, I'm going to watch this completely, but apparently it tends to be much less aware of prior history. So it only considers your current prompt, and it's going to tend to focus on like nearby 100 or 200 lines of things in the context of adjacent code. So like if it's from what I've read, if you're a software developer in a company with 200 or 300 software engineers, and this giant, you know, 10 million token code base, it can't process the whole 10 million token code base when you want to work on one stupid little function, right? So it has a way, when you're in there in VS Code or GitHub Copilot, it has a way to understand the local context nearby you, so that whenever you go in to whichever one, maybe you're in VS Code and you do comments and say, give me a scaffold for a test agent for these pieces, for these two code files. So it knows enough to go figure out and get, you know, a reasonable context and then run it through. Anyhow, so it's really fascinating to me to see how that works.
Is it down right now? I was just doing something and like all of a sudden it's acting up. Can you just check if it's down? Because this is weird. It's like not responding or
Maybe
anything.
I broke it. Here, I'll tell you.
You broke it.
I broke it. It's fun then. Okay, here, I'll tell you. Here, I'll try it with the, tell me about your services.
Sure. Telecom offers specialized phone.
Oops.
Sorry, I'm having
All
issues.
right, it's me then. It's me. I don't know
I
why.
don't understand what you said.
Yeah.
Broken for me. Because I just did what you said. I just played with the personalization, and now it's broken. So
Yes.
I told it I'm German, so I guess now it's refusing to work.
Ausgezeichnet. Yeah, that's good.
Well, does anyone have any other topics?
Since we're talking about AI and such, hold on a second. I could try sharing something. I wasn't planning on it, but let's see how it goes. Okay, so I've been playing around with the in the ChatGPT playground with the real-time API, and the idea is to see if I can use this as a front end to generate a human-robot conversation, and generate goals from that. And so I've been playing around with my arm, so this entire thing right here is the system prompt. And the idea is to generate a chat with the user and try to have the AI figure out whether or not the user is trying to issue a command or if it just wants to converse, right? So it's trying to make it into a modal sort of self-determinator, and then as a result of what mode it thinks it's in, it will generate commands that the robot could then act on. And so I'll just give you an example. So the whole idea with the real-time API is that it accepts voice input, and it responds very, very quickly. It has a bundled LLM, and it's also supposed to be able to accept video input. So I've also been playing with on the Google side with Gemini's live API, because their sort of playground can actually accept video. For some reason, the playground on the OpenAI side doesn't, at least what I have access to. So anyhow, so the prompt is sitting up in here. And if I should have got rid of all of that. Let me hide that. So yeah, the prompt is sitting up here, and if I start a session.
So you're talking about a robot arm. Is that right?
So are you guys hearing what it just said?
No,
No.
just reading it.
I heard something, but couldn't make it out.
Okay, in that case, so it's actually giving me responses as I'm talking here. And so you can see what it's typing right here, and I'm actually hearing it in a pretty decent voice. But the idea is that, in fact, I should probably turn it off for a second. So the idea is that, I've already told it it's a robot. Its name is Barney, and that it needs to be, and that it has an arm, a 4 degree of freedom arm, on which a camera is mounted. And I may ask it to look around to go to certain presets of that arm with the forward IK, or so not IK, but forward kinematics, to go to certain presets based on just my talking with it, right? So I'm gonna start a session. And hello, robot. Let's get ready to go. So it chose to issue this preset. So I would interpret that as a command and connect it in RAWs directly to a node that would push the arm into that preset. So it would issue this bit right here. And that would make the arm, let me stop it again. So that would tell the arm to see. So I would change this portion. So it's not wired up right now. I'm just sort of in a debugging mode.
But you could, I guess, from the playground, use actions or webhooks somehow.
So I'm using the API directly, and so this will go directly in as a ROS, as part of a ROS node in a separate thread.
All right.
All right, so that's the, oh, the robot is way over there.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it was already in bumper forward. I didn't realize that. Okay. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to ask it to look up. I'm having to shut it off and on again because it's trying to interpret all my speaking. So hey robot, can you look up? Can you look up and a little bit to the right? So if I then go to look up, I'll just type it in because it's look up
Rightish.
at rightish,
Huh.
right? And I issue that. I wonder if it's going to move on. Let's see.
Cool.
There it is. So it's looking up and a little bit to the right. And so it's got this series of poses that I've told it about that it can play with. And I'm even playing with like giving it an idea in the prompt, in the system prompt, that this pose is more related to this pose. So that, for example, if I tell it to look at me, there's a default pose where it's going to look where it thinks most people are going to be standing. And then if it still doesn't see me, I've basically given it some logic to say, if I say try again, you're probably not actually looking at me. Try randomly a nearby pose and see if you can scan around to find me, that kind of thing. So I'm looking at the different ways of hooking this up directly into ROS that is efficient, and also obviously worrying about safety concerns and things like that, because I'm also planning to let it move around as a result of this kind of stuff. So anyhow, that's just some experimentation I'm doing right now.
That's very cool. So I think that system instruction there is directly analogous to the instructions that I showed in the custom GPT. So and what I learned in the custom GPT is that there's, I believe, a hard limit of something like 4096 tokens for the custom GPT system messages, or they call them instructions in the custom GPT. Have you looked at the maximum token size that you can put in this field?
No, this is a pretty long one, but I haven't.
You got several thousand there, I think.
Yeah, it's probably not quite at that limit, but I would suspect that
2 or 3. Anyhow.
I would suspect that the system prompt. So I've been doing a lot of like studying of this kind of stuff. So I'm looking at Langchain and Langraph as sort of ways to orchestrate multiple LLMs to work together. And in the documentation that I'm looking at there, obviously all of these LLM providers have different rules and limits for like this kind of thing, and token count, total token context size, and stuff like that. I haven't seen anything about a limit on the system prompt. So maybe at the API level, that's not that common. In a way, it really amounts to a portion of the total context, right?
Right.
And it's just a higher priority context.
Right. But it has, but there's a, like for the application I was thinking of, and you saw the sales agent there as an example. it's a little different from this robot. From the robots, you might be maybe or maybe not tolerant of the delay that it takes to process your command, your voice command, and figure out what to do with it. But if you can think of something like an interactive, like a sales agent, if the delay starts to get too long, then it's not comfortable interaction. So what I understood with a couple things with the real-time API was that, and one of the reasons why they might constrain the system overriding can't be jailbroken instructions to this, whatever the limit is has to do with latency. And to what I've read, you want that to be like 500 tokens if you want to stick within the overall response budget of like a third or a half or 7/10 of a second, because much more than that, an unnatural human sounding interaction.
Yeah, that's true. Again, the real-time API is using a real-time optimized model
Right.
that is already, and it's based on 4.0,
Right.
and it's so it's definitely tuned for low latency. But
Right.
for example, on my ROS 2 robot, I've written a node using a Scilero-VAD. So VADs are voice activity detectors.
Right.
And
right.
the whole idea there is that because it's also very expensive, these APIs. So with Scilero-VAD, and I imagine sort of leaving my robot on, like my robot's been on for more than 50 days so far, like been running continuously in RAWs without crashing. And so that's a nice benchmark to hit. But what it means is my low-level stuff, it's just my low-level stuff, obviously. So it's good to know that it's, it's good and stable. But I totally lost my chain of thought right there. Where was I going?
Latency
Totally lost
and sizes and
Number of days.
Yeah. Wow. Totally lost.
we liked it anyhow.
Anyhow, yeah.
Context
So,
slip.
anyhow, I'm trying to get this the responsiveness to stay up, right? And so I have a node that uses Scilero-VAD to. Oh yeah, it's just that I want the robot to be on all the time, right? So it's sitting there in its charging dock, and I want to be able to wake it up with just saying something. But I don't want to be sending all of that. I don't want to be sending silence back to Open API all the time because I'm burning out tokens, right?
Yeah.
That'll get pricey real fast. So so Scilero-VAD is one of those voice activity detectors. It's trained on human voices, like 50 languages or something like that. So it's really good at picking up voice, separating out background noise, and I only want it to wake up with a wake word, and then send to send it up to the real-time API. So I have that built. It's still a little squirrely, some bugs in it, but as soon as I finish tuning that, I'll plug that into the node that I'm building to send it to the real-time API in real time, and then send it back for the command processor to execute it, and I'll run over somebody.
Turn the blades on first.
Yeah, I've discovered that the Google real-time API, so there's a portion of the system prompt that deals with interrogating what it's seeing, and so I've instructed it to give back information about everything that it's seeing and where the coordinates of all those objects are in the frame in JSON format, so that I can process that as well coming back. The text response is JSON format, where the voice response is whatever a human will want to hear. So right now, in fact, because I can't actually connect it to in the OpenAI real-time playground, I can't actually connect up the camera. I can do it through the API. So but that makes it harder to test right now. So I've just told it to basically imagine it's at a beach and make up a scene if it doesn't have a camera input. Should be. So it's making up stuff, but as it makes it up, it actually sends it back to me in JSON format in the text, which could be, interpreted by my command interpreter, while, through voice, it says, I see seagulls on the, to the left of me, or, in the center of the frame, there's some kids playing.
I have sand in my shorts or something.
The sun doesn't shine.
And then it can still go on and play normal chat. It ended up asking me what kind of animals do I like, and I said fish, but my fish died, and so it started commiserating with me in a very empathic voice, because they got a pretty good voice model. And if I had switched to Hindi, it should have been able to. Not that I can speak that, but it should have been able to switch to a different language.
Huh.
Does the arm have fingers?
No, it's just got 4 degrees of freedom. It has a panning base. It has a shoulder. It has an elbow, and it has a wrist. And on the wrist, there's a camera mounted.
I was gonna say you could do a reluctant listener mode where it's just you go on and it's
there are people. So there's a where did I see this recently? There's a so there's a whole new class of robots of LLMs that are voice action models, or so what they do is they're actually targeted at real-time control of robot arms, and often they're dual arms. And so they're doing things like picking up laundry and pulling it out of the dryer and folding it and stuff like that. So they're getting really, really capable. Again, I lost my train of thought where I was going with that. What was the question you just asked, Ray?
No, I just
you were just making a snide remark. Oh yeah, it was the puppets, right? Yeah. So there's what's the name of that? So you should look this up. There's a project called Le Robot, right? And it is sort of like an entry-level version of this that people can play with. Like the arm is something that you can 3D print and assemble yourself for like $150, something like that. It still takes a lot of work, but the models are published on Hugging Face, and so you can spin this up and you can start playing with it. And there are people who have it's basically a 6 degree of freedom arm with a little gripper on it, and there are people who have covered it with a Muppet, right? and then made it do that kind of behavior in response to voice. But it's a pretty amazing what those are doing these days, because there's some real full-on real-time stuff happening there that's just absolutely amazing.
Can you go back to I think you mentioned some libraries or services that help orchestrate different LLM agents?
Yeah, probably the premier of those is Langraph. So Langchain is really I think it's the company name, and that was the initial version, and it was about chaining multiple LLMs in a stream so that they could coordinate and take on different sections of work. Sometimes even reviewing what a previous LLM had put out.
Yes.
Right. And so Langraph is the graph-oriented version of it, where you have multiple nodes. It's basically a big state machine that coordinates different LLMs, piping results back and forth to each other. And you can basically set it up any way you want. And there's just some amazing courses out there. I can give you let me see if I can bring up I can give you a link to a document where I'm starting to gather my notes on all that kind of stuff. if
Oh.
if that helps.
Yeah, I see they have a Langraph Academy course, but because it seems like
Yeah.
it seems like that being able to do that is how you can leverage the best of these different models in their speed, their accuracy, their knowledge, their skills, and do it in a timely fashion. Like, because just when I read through the O3 thinking process and look at how it goes and computes between its intermediate steps. And I think somewhere I read about a little bit about the way that it does that. And it tries to take your prompt and come up with an answer and then verify its own answer. It looks really valuable as a paradigm to have, you know, an agent that knows how to do research, an agent that knows how to reason and think, an agent knows how to phrase answers, something like that.
So I
Thank
just shared the link.
That'd be great. Thank you. Yep. LLMs for robots.
And at the very bottom is Langraph. Oh, I have a separate. Okay, so this is that. What I just shared was my notes on just multimodal LLMs for robots and some of the stuff that I was talking about so far.
Yep.
But towards the bottom of that is orchestration frameworks, and
Okay.
there's a link in there to another document that I've just which I just started. And so it doesn't have much in it, but that will continue to grow, and I probably have to make that visible to anyone. Change the sharing on it.
Cool.
Okay, you should be able to get to that. And there's a couple of Udemy courses in there that are just absolutely fantastic. Oh, you guys should also check out DeepWiki. Probably. That is, so DeepWiki is well, no, never mind. That's like getting too deep.
Did you put a second link in there, or the link you exposed as part of that first document?
Oh yeah, in that first document towards the bottom, there's going to be a section on LLM orchestration tools.
Orchestration frameworks, got it.
Or yeah, and then there's a link to it lists Langraph, PipeCat, and then Langraph, and there's a link to a document, Langraph learning notes. But that's really, it's just a couple of links in there. It's not really, but I'll be fleshing that out.
Cool.
In this next week.
Thanks for sharing.
Yeah. So by the way, I'm dead in the water after playing this with Personalization. I'm in the process of contacting OpenAI support. I am dead in the water. I played with those settings. I can no longer use it in the browser. I can no longer use it in my app on my phone. It's gone. It broke my account.
You can't even get into your account settings, or?
Well, I can get into the account settings, but not the personalization settings.
Really?
It doesn't let me even go there anymore. It's completely confused that whatever database is going on behind the scenes is messed up. It can't show me the settings. I can't do new chats.
I'm sorry, pal. I can't help you.
So I'm gonna
The
reach out to
robots are
support.
rising.
So can you do all control delete? Reboot.
Yeah, in my app on the phone, I still see my old chats, right? I guess because that data lives on the phone, or a copy of it. In the browser, I just get mostly a blank screen. I get nothing.
Have you tried opening a different browser to log in on a different browser?
I will try that next.
Because I mean,
But in the phone, I can't submit new chats, and when I try to go to the personalization settings, I get an error.
In the phone.
In the phone, yeah, it's I go to settings, personalization. It sits there thinking for a while, spinny thing, hourglass, and then it pops up. Could not update the memory setting. Please try again later. So I'm convinced something
Oh.
got confused in the database.
Oh yeah, that's yeah. It drove me nuts for a good week, 2 weeks on the one task that it created that I didn't know about. So that's one of the challenges with this thing, right? It can modify its own code when you're not looking. So when it says, like when you're in a chat and it says memory created, let your feelers go up and very quickly go to your personalization and see what the frick memory did it just make, and decide where you want to
the
keep.
memory feature I don't even have turned on, right? I don't know why I
Okay.
get that error. I don't even have that memory feature turned on. I
Yeah.
just, that settings page that I used to, that I just played with a moment ago, now I can't even get to that settings page anymore.
Oh man.
Maybe your account's locked out because of.
It does let me log in, so I can still log in. I just can't use it after logging in.
Are you using Google or one of those,
Right
or
now I'm
do you
on
have
a
a separate
Mac.
account?
I'm on a Mac
No,
in
I
Safari.
mean the authentication. What are you using? Are you like using your Google account to log in, or is it your account bound?
I'm using my Gmail, but then it wants me to go into my authenticator app. It's doing two-factor thing. So it lets me log in. It just won't let me submit any new chats, and it won't, in the browser, it won't show me any of my old data. So I'm talking to the support chatbot right now.
Good luck with that.
Yeah.
I had a hell of a time. I could never get a real person. In fact, I wanted to get feedback on that one error, and it said to get feedback on the one error within the chat. There's a button, and I forget which one it is. Maybe it's the thumbs down, but if you click that button, it's supposed to come up with a prompt where you can enter your feedback. But you have to do it in context to give the feedback within and I didn't see any way to do it for the other. Oh man.
I've become so dependent on it. I don't know what I'm gonna do.
Oh no.
It's my new search, it's my search engine, my go-to search engine, right? So it's like you just took my Google away.
Right? How will we survive? I did discover another thing I haven't mentioned yet, which is somebody mentioned that this red team adversarial testing, guardrails and things. So, so it turns out, I mean, they have things in place so that if you start asking, how do I build a bomb, right? I want to kill somebody, I want to commit suicide, all these different kinds of things. If you start veering into the wrong directions, they have guardrails in place. And what I learned is that, like, let's say you're a company that used the API to generate answers in response to your customers' questions. Well, it turns out that if you expose, like a sales agent, for example, and the customers start asking about how to build a bomb, if too many of your customers start doing that and you don't follow the right guidelines, OpenAI will shut you down. They will stop letting you use the API.
Good.
Reportedly. So what you're supposed to do is they have some kind of moderation API where before you run your customer's query through their model, you're supposed to run their query through the moderation API and make sure that it's okay to run through their model. Something like that. But I'm sure, Chris, that you didn't have anything to do with that in your prompt. You weren't you
Didn't say the B word. Yeah.
Nope. Like I said, there was this text entry box. Tell me about yourself and interesting things. I'm German, is all I said. It broke it.
Ooh.
Did you write it in German?
No.
Oh God. Is this like what happens when you take your phone? You take your wife's phone and you put it in Mandarin when she's not looking, and make her figure out how to put it back into English.
Well,
Okay.
guys, any more
Time to go.
comments?
All righty. Sounds good. Have a good night.
Have a
Good
safe
luck,
week,
Chris.
guys.
So, so Carl, are you going to Moon